Hi, everybody, it's Don, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, did you guess? Have you guessed? Yes, that's right. I'm back on a cruise. I guess you could tell by the TV I'm on Princess Cruise Line. And I met up with Tony. Tony and I. Now, Tony pretty much let it out of the bag the other day when he was doing his live stream from the Utopia of the Seas when he goes and he says, yeah, well, I'm doing this. Oh, wait. Well, I'm only speaking for myself and not anybody else, but I am going to the Caribbean Princess in England. Well, yeah, that other person was me. Obviously, we were trying to keep a little bit of a secret just to surprise everybody that we're here, as we've never covered this on the channel before. But yeah, Greenland, Iceland, that's where we are, back on the Caribbean Princesses, one of my favorite ships in the Princess Fleet, just because it's a tender moment to me. The first ship I ever covered on the channel. It was my launching career, if you will, to the YouTube channel, my travel agency. Everything was all on this ship that week. And so, yeah, pretty special moment. I think this is the most ships that Tony's been on as well. He's been on this ship. This is his fourth trip. And he never doubles up on ships normally, but he's been on this ship more than any other ship now that he's ever sailed on. So, yeah, he's catching up. Well, here we go. But I got a story to tell you as well, because this is a cruise warning to everybody. Don't end up having this happen, because it's so vital that you have to double check everything. Otherwise, what happened to this grandmother and her 15-year-old granddaughter might happen to you. So in case you're wondering, yeah, behind me, that is where the crew and everybody and other people can come up and watch for sailaways and things like that. Well, that's like right off my balcony here on the Caribbean Princess today. I'll talk to you a little bit more in a future video on the cabin. But I did have a story that is pretty important, because I didn't want people to miss out on possibly a horrible experience in your cruise. And this happened to a 75-year-old grandmother taking a 2-week cruise with Cunard on the Queen Mary 2 with her 15-year-old granddaughter. And it was supposed to be kind of memorable because it was like a full circle cruise, because 15 years ago she took this exact cruise with her daughter at the time, when she was 60 years old. And now she's taking her granddaughter. It was supposed to be this like dream vacation with them and Cunard, sailing over to New York for 14 days. Well, unfortunately for them, she forgot that her granddaughter needed some documentation, not just her. So she got herself the ETSA, which is the visa you need to enter the United States, travel the United States for 90 days or less on like a tourist. But the grandmother thought she saw or read or heard somewhere that 16 and under didn't need one. Now, she did not double check. She did not go online to find out. She just went by assumption, and that assumption was incorrect. And so when they got there, the granddaughter was denied boarding. Now, they tried to immediately apply for one, and they did get one on the same day. But by the time they had sent in for the travel visa, well, it came in at 5:04 p.m. and the set sail time was 5 p.m. The ship had just pulled away from the port when that came through, so they missed their cruise altogether. A 2-week cruise on the Cunard Queen Mary, because they just assumed about the documentation. Even myself as an agent, with all the things changing and everything nowadays, being myself a Canadian citizen, we're kind of part of England. But I still had to check. Do we need a visa? Or is my passport still good enough? Do I need a visa to go to Greenland, Iceland? What do I need for the cruise? And I looked up every single trip, every single stop. And I know what I need. I got my documentation ready, and I would know if I have any traveling companions like my niece or my nephews or anybody coming with me, I would know exactly what we needed in documentation. And especially when you're traveling with children and young adults, you need to know that they are often considered adults, no matter what the age, unless they're under 6 months or a year in some cases. But you definitely need to pay attention to the documentation. Now, what they ended up doing is they were able to get the visa, obviously, came in too late, and they ended up getting ready to fly to New York for the second half of that trip. So they'll fly to New York and get on back on the Queen Mary 2 for 7 days coming back, which is, at least they're getting some of their cruise back. But that extra flight now and the hotel when they're there, it's all extra money that they didn't plan on spending. So yes, no matter what, when you're traveling, when you're setting sail, documentation is so important. I literally just booked my own trip for next June into Africa. I'm going on a safari into Zambia. And I have no idea the travel restrictions and documentation I needed. So the very first thing I did once I made my deposit on that trip is that I got a hold, what visa do I need and everything. I found out from Canada, I only need my passport to go into Zambia, Africa, if I'm going for under a certain amount of days, which is perfect. Okay, got my passport. It needs to have 2 pages free. It needs to not expire 6 months after my final day in Africa. None of that happened, so I'm good there. And I have a list of inoculations that I need. Now, how did I get that? I went to my pharmacist. I said, I'm traveling next year. I'm traveling to this country. How do I go around getting my inoculations? What do I need? How do I find out? And they arranged everything, saying, now I come in on this day. I'll speak to a travel specialist, doctor, and they will arrange all the inoculations, schedule them for me, because some of them are 3 different shots, etc. beforehand. They have to be done a certain amount of time away from each other. They're going to have recommendations and necessary ones. For instance, some countries, if you're coming from a certain country, you need yellow fever inoculation. Well, luckily Canada doesn't have that, so I'm good there. But they recommend things like rabies, hepatitis B, polio, etc. A whole list of them. But that was the very first thing I did. I literally drove to the pharmacy after making my deposit that day, and I found out, okay, what do I need to do? How's my passport situation? I'm good there, okay. Now, what do I need to get into the country? And I found out all these inoculations and shots and everything like that. And so, yeah, I feel sorry that they missed out, and I can only feel for the poor granddaughter who had nothing to do with it. But I imagine how upset she would be, because technically she's the one who can't get on. The grandmother could get on, even though the grandmother made all the arrangements, and etc., etc. But yeah, it's kind of a sad story in a way. But the good news is they're going to get on the cruise. She's going to have a trip with her granddaughter. Granddaughter's going to have a great trip with her grandmother, and I hope they have a great one. And this is a lesson learned for everybody out there. Make sure your paperwork is in order, or you could be just turned away at the port. And never, ever assume because you heard a YouTube video from me or anybody else, or you read it somewhere in an article that they're thinking about doing this. Double check, find out for yourself. Call the cruise line if you have to. Check online, Google it. There's a ton of ways to find out. But it definitely doesn't pay not to do your research. And you just might get your cruise canceled. So what do you guys think? You want to take one quick look at the size of this balcony I'm on? Do you think that's it? No. It was all the way over there. But this is my view. Like, okay, yes, all right, I can go over here. I can go over here. And I'll have a pretty good view from here. And I'll even be able to tell what the captain's doing if he's messing up pulling into port or pulling out of port. So, all right, Captain, I got my eye on you. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel blogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.